Hi, I'm Dustin Abbott, and I'm here to give you a review of a unique filter system today. Now, I get approached on basically a daily basis from various companies that are interested in me looking at their project, their creations. And in many cases, due to the busyness of my schedule, I have to say no. I can only fit so many things in. Every now and then, however, there's something that really kind of captures my attention, and I really like the proof of concept, and so I'm intrigued enough to take a closer look. Such is the case with this new magnetic filter swap system from Freewell. And so basically the design is that you can add on a lens cap or you can add on a filter via this magnetic system and do a very quick swap, and makes it easier to go in and out of filtering a lens. And so I was intrigued, and so I thought I'd take a closer look, and I'm here today to share it with you. So first of all, let's take a closer look at the actual concept and see if it works in reality. Let's jump in and go hands-on. So let's take a closer look at how this system from Freewell works. And so you're all familiar with the traditional way that a filter has to be screwed on and then screwed off if you want to replace it. And so the design that Freewell has gone with is really a magnetic system. So even if you're ordering like the circular polarizer here, it actually comes also with a UV filter. And so you've got the option of using either the UV filter or just the magnetic attachment ring. And so if you opt to use the UV filter, you can screw that on just like you would a traditional filter. But then you have the option, if you're wanting to polarize, that you can actually then just use the magnetic attachment point. And so you still have the ability, the magnetic is strong enough, you have the ability to rotate it normally, and voila, it's just that simple to either add it or take it off. Now, if, like myself, I'm not a big fan of using a UV protection filter, and that's the reason why I don't, is it's just adding extra optical elements into the arrangement that I just don't find necessary, particularly with a lot of modern lenses that already have a special coating on the front element that does provide some protection value. So if you opt to go that way, you can just put this ring on, which, by the way, it actually has a really fine knurling on it, which is a really nice in terms of the tactile texture of it. It's also a really nice pairing actually with the new Canon RF lenses. This is not an RF, this is an EF lens, but that texture is very much like the control ring on RF lenses. So then once you have just that ring attached, you can either, if you're wanting to filter, filtering is just that simple. And by the way, the front of these filters are also threaded that if you wanted to do stacking, you could do so. So easy enough to filter. And so in this case, for example, I can keep that circular polarizer there on the lens if I wanted. And then they've even given you an alternate lens cap that attaches via magnetic, and it's not going to come off, and so it's low profile. You can actually carry around both of those things, both your polarizer and your front cap, and actually take up less space than what you normally would with such a thing. And so there's no problem with that when it comes to the lens hood. It's very low profile, very sleek. For example, if I take off the front cap and then I want to rotate in there, everything works just fine. And so as far as the proof of concept, it works just great. As you can tell, it is a quicker, a better way of doing something that we're familiar with. The question is does it hold up optically? Let's take a look. First of all, let's look at wide open f1.4, and this is just with the circular polarizer attached. And so the reason for looking at it f1.4 is not just for resolution, but also looking at vignette. And so we can see that this has cut a little over a stop and a third of light with the polarizer, which is not necessarily unusual. And looking at the center of the frame, we actually see that contrast has improved. And so rather than losing resolution, we have actually gained a little bit more apparent resolution due to a little additional contrast. Corners don't look a whole lot different, and we can see that vignette is not strongly different with this attached. It's roughly similar. Now we can see that the color temperature is ever so slightly warmer, a little bit maybe greener in tint, but it's faint. Now if we move on to f2.8, vignette, as you can see, has cleared up basically equally between the two sides. We can see still a little bit of a color temperature difference, which, again, you can correct by if you went into a manual correction. Contrast, sharpness looks pretty much the same in the center of the frame, and looking up into the corner, it looks pretty much the same there as well. And so good news is that no real resolution hit by adding on the circular polarizer. Now, if we put on the ND64/circular polarizer, it is a thicker filter, and so you can see that there is a little bit more mechanical vignette. And also some of that is due to the nature of a longer exposure with the ND filter attached that kind of exaggerates our vignette. So as far as the actual resolution goes, we can see that I would say there is the tiniest drop of resolution in the center. It's not significant, and so image quality is still good. Looking off into the corner, I would say that the same is true. There's just a very minor hit. In terms of color temperature, it's really no different than what we saw before, and so no major tint has been introduced. Now, stepping down to f2.8, we can see that there is still a little bit more vignette that is introduced, and slight, again, very slight change to the color temperature. Now at f2.8, resolution and contrast looks really fantastic in the center of the frame, and so it's, we're overcoming that. In the corner, there's still a little tiny bit of loss, but it's not significant. And so overall, we've got a pretty good performance optically out of these filters. So as you can see, not only does the concept work, but the filters are actually of good quality. And I should note that this was tested on the Sony a7R Mark IV, which at 61 megapixels is the currently highest resolution 35mm full frame camera on the market. And so it's got lots of optical chops and performance there, and so it's held up well for that. And so we've got a system that works, and if you'll take a look in the description down below, you can take a look at their website. Obviously, with all filters, the prices vary according to what size you need and what type of filter that you need. But I would say that the prices to me look to be very moderate and competitive with other traditional type filters. And so I think you're getting a pretty strong value there. And of course, the ability to then, go to their low profile lens cap, if you don't mind that, means that you end up with an actual smaller package for transport, and so far it's worked quite well. I've had no issues with cap coming loose, and certainly the ability to change out filters very quickly means that, for example, in the case if you're using it on one lens, as I've been primarily doing it on this Canon 35mm f1.4L Mark II, it just means that I always have a circular polarizer on hand, which of course is handy indeed. You can see images right now that I have taken with this combination, and so you can get beautiful results. If you'll take a look in the description down below, you can find the linkage to going and shopping for one for yourself. Beyond that, there's also a linkage there if you'd like to follow me on social media or become a patron. And of course, if you haven't already, please click that subscribe button right here on YouTube. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.